Dark-eyed Juncos is a sparrow species that has a ton of variation within the species. They are also thought to be the harbingers of winter. But is this actually true? Let's dive in. What makes Juncos so fun is that there's so much variation between the subspecies of Dark-eyed Juncos. In a very basic sense, Dark-eyed Juncos can be identified by their dark eye, hence the name, their small sparrow-like size, their triangular, sometimes pink, sometimes a little brownish grayish bill, and white tail feathers that flash open while they're in flight. Now here's the hard part. Let's go over all the subspecies of Dark-eyed Juncos. There's technically 15, but only 7 of them are easily identified within the field. The first subspecies of Dark-eyed Junco is known as the Oregon subspecies. These are my favorite personally, and they have a dark hood that covers the whole top half of their body. They also have a pink bill, and they're pretty widespread across the entirety of the United States. The second I want to talk about is also one of the more common ones. That's the slate-colored subspecies of Dark-eyed Junco. These are dark almost all over their bodies except for a very light white patch on the lower belly of the bird. They also feature a pink bill, and they're pretty widespread across the US as well. The third Dark-eyed Junco subspecies is called pink-sided. These have lighter heads and a reddish-brown body overall. They also feature a pink bill as well. The fourth subspecies is red-backed. Now, I had these down when I lived in Flagstaff, Arizona. They are almost completely gray, and they feature a red patch on the back of their back. Their eyes also have like an eyeliner look with dark eyes surrounding their already dark eyes. They also feature a more gray bill compared to the other ones that feature a pink bill. The fifth is gray-headed. Now these look very similar to the red-backed Dark-eyed Juncos, but they're a little bit more faded, and they actually have a pink bill instead of the gray bill of the red-back. The sixth subspecies of Dark-eyed Juncos is called white-winged. Now this is probably the least common. They are only in a small part of the United States within their range, and they're very similar to the slate-colored Dark-eyed Junco, but they have white wing bars on its wings. The seventh subspecies of Dark-eyed Junco is known as Sismontanus. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's also super random. I don't actually know what it means. I'm sure it means something descriptive, but the other birds are like pink-sided and red-backed, and this one's like Sismontanus. They look very similar to Oregon Juncos, but they have white underparts on its belly. So those are the 7 subspecies of Dark-eyed Junco. Now for most of you, that's probably not going to matter, especially if you are a beginner into birding and bird watching. You probably only care, is it a Junco or not? Now structurally, they all look almost exactly the same, but their colors are very different, making them the same species now. But at one point, 5 of these were considered separate species until about the 1980s, when they were split into these different subspecies and were all considered to be the same. When you get a little bit further along in your bird watching journey, you might want to start collecting subspecies. I love collecting Dark-eyed Junco subspecies and finding rarities within the common ones in my area. Next, we're going to talk about their habitat and range. Now, Dark-eyed Juncos are actually one of the most common birds in North America. Population-wise, they are actually considered to be in the top 5 most common birds in North America. Their range extends all the way from Alaska and Canada in the north, all the way down to central Mexico in the south. You can find them in a range of different habitats, especially in coniferous forests as well as deciduous forests, making them a very versatile bird. During the winter, they can actually expand their habitats to include things like backyards, parks, parking lots, fields, and this helps provide them with a little more resources than they would have in their normal habitats. The Dark-eyed Junco also lives all the way from sea level to 11,000 feet, meaning that they are in the lowest parts of the country to the highest parts of the country, and that's also probably why they are one of the most numerous birds in our vast continent. Dark-eyed Juncos primarily eat seeds. This makes up about 3/4 of their diet in a year. But during the breeding season, they can actually branch out and start eating insects because they're expending a lot more energy during those time periods. Dark-eyed Junco is a bird that prefers to eat and forage on the ground, so if you have feeders in your backyard, most likely they're going to be on the ground, but they also don't mind occasionally flying up and catching an insect and also feeding in trees. A good way to identify them by behavior is when they take off in flight, they will flash their outer white wing feathers on their tails. And so there's a few other species that can do that, so it's not a telltale sign that it is a Junco, but when you combine that with a few other behavioral things, it's pretty easy to ID these birds in the field. During breeding season, male Juncos are very territorial, and they'll chase off any intruders that try to enter their areas. In the winter, Dark-eyed Juncos will actually form very large flocks, so it's very easy to find them, and that's also a reason why people might think that they only show up in the winter. Again, we'll get into that a little bit more in a few minutes. Nesting female juncos will actually weave their nests together to form that little cup shape. Typically they actually nest on the ground, but they are also known to nest up on ledges and in trees occasionally. Each clutch consists of 3 to 6 eggs, and they have 2 to 3 clutches every year. Incubation only takes about 2 weeks, a little bit less than that. And then nesting period also only takes a little bit less than 2 weeks, 10 to 12 days actually. So it's a very quick turnaround process, allowing them to have 1 to 3 broods per year. Juncos are super important for the ecosystem as well, as they help to disperse seeds across environments, and they also help with insect control during the breeding season. And because things are a circle of life, as we learned in The Lion King, dark-eyed juncos are also good food for larger predators like sharp-shinned hawks and Cooper's hawks, for example. Now, this is a bird that you can actually attract to your yard. So some tips to attracting dark-eyed juncos to your yard is to spread seeds across the ground. This is super important. Now, this is something that you can do by yourself, or you can just allow the other birds in your yard to do this. Birds are really, really messy, so if you have feeders up, a lot of that seed is going to be put onto the ground and therefore will attract the juncos, especially in the wintertime. Juncos also really like millet seed. If you haven't seen my seed video, it's a seed guide, go check that one out. I'll put it in the link in the description. But spreading this on the ground can also bring juncos into your yard as well. Now, if you're a birder and you want to find these birds, you've never seen these birds, or you just want to find them again and try to identify the subspecies, you can check out coniferous forests as well as deciduous forests, especially during the winter time. During the summer, especially if you live out west, you can actually find them at higher elevations. So if you go up in the mountains, the juncos are still there. They're just up in higher elevations, again, up to 11,000 feet in some cases. In the eastern US, you're actually most likely to find them in the winter, but you can go up higher in elevation and still find them during the summer months as well. In the north, including Alaska or Canada, you can find them during the breeding season in abundance. Most of those birds will move out and drop down south in the winter. Some fun facts about dark-eyed juncos include that females are more attracted to male juncos that have a lot more white on their tail feathers. The name junco comes from the word rush in Latin, which is actually a plant that's typically found in the wetlands. In my opinion, doesn't really make sense, but that's fine. And then the last fact, are juncos actually harbingers of winter? And the answer is, it depends on where you live. In the eastern United States, it is true, juncos tend to disappear during the summer, and they do come back in abundance in the winter. So in that area, it's probably appropriate to say that they are harbingers of winter. But again, if you go up into higher elevations, you can still find them, so they haven't really actually left your area in some cases. In the western United States, juncos are here year-round. They just go up to higher elevations. Obviously, some of them move north as well, but we have juncos here almost all year, especially when you get up to about 11,000 feet. Again, they can still be harbingers of winter down in your yards because they'll drop down in those colder months, and they'll also move down from the north as well. If you live super far north like Canada or Alaska, this is completely inaccurate in most cases. Juncos are actually more likely to leave in the winter, so they could be announcers of spring for you. So the answer is yes, they can announce winter for certain parts of North America, but in other cases, this is just completely inaccurate. Let me know in the comments below, have you ever seen a dark-eyed junco? And if so, what is your favorite subspecies of dark-eyed junco? Again, mine is the Oregon subspecies. I think they look like they have little hoods on their heads. Pretty cool. If you'd like to learn more about birds, please consider subscribing to this channel. I do educational content every week on Saturdays. If you'd like to check out my birding exploration videos, the link to that channel will be in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you all next time on Bright-Eyed Birding Learn.